Mr. Skinner, I'd just like to start by asking you what the provincial government is doing to take advantage of this province's geographic proximity to Greenland.
Well, there's been a fair bit that has happened in the past. We've had 3 or 4 trade missions to Greenland besides the one that I just recently attended. And there have been work done in telecommunications in terms of internet and broadband infrastructure. There's been work done in terms of boat building. There's been work done in terms of housing and prefab homes. And the main reason for the trip that I just concluded was to introduce our offshore industry companies to Nuna Oil and the Greenland oil industry over there and the minerals industry because of some of the significant finds of oil and gas that have been found in Greenland recently.
And what was the reception like?
The reception was very good. There's certainly a cultural link, I'll call it. They're an island people. There's 56,000 people and a huge landmass. So it's very sparsely populated, a lot like Newfoundland and Labrador. Only a lot less people than Newfoundland and Labrador. So there's a bit of a link there, I think. I think we have a lot in common. But they also recognized that we've had 25 years or so, 30 years of an offshore oil industry ourselves, and we have technical capabilities, and we have competencies that they can benefit from. And so they were very pleased that we contacted them and that we went over. A number of companies came with us. We had some people from P.F. Collins and from NOIA itself, Newfoundland Offshore Industries Association. We had people from Harvey's. We had Marine Institute attended with us, Cougar Helicopters. So all of these people came over and talked not about their own companies. It wasn't about pitching your own services. It was talking about Newfoundland and Labrador as a place to do business, and Newfoundland and Labrador vis-a-vis offshore oil capability and capacity. And they were very receptive in Greenland and very interested in what we had to offer. So receptive and so interested that some of them will be coming back again late this winter, early in the spring of 2011.
Now, at this moment, there is no direct flights from this country, let alone this province, to Greenland. What can we do about that?
Yeah, we were fortunate. Before we went, we tried to set up meetings with Greenland area or Greenland, and unfortunately the people we wanted to see weren't available at the time we left. But when we got there, there were some people that had come in from Denmark who were attached with Air Greenland because they have a great connection culturally and otherwise with Denmark. And so we did get to meet some people, and it was one of our better meetings. The information that we were able to provide them about air capacity and air access to Newfoundland and Labrador, and strategically, geographically, where we're located relative to the north and relative to other major markets, was something they weren't aware of. And so they were very interested in coming here. And as I indicated earlier, Air Greenland, for instance, will be here in, I expect, February or March to follow up. I've shipped them off some information. I contacted our local airport authority. Our provincial Department of Business gathered up some information to send them about our capabilities of our airports, the kinds of connections we have, the numbers of passengers we have, where those passengers go. And I also did a bit of research myself in terms of how much business we're currently doing in Greenland that could be beneficial to an air link. So, for instance, I happen to have a friend who I ran into in Nuuk, the capital of Greenland, while I was there, and he's a fisherman on a fishing boat. And when I ran into him, I asked him what he was doing there, and he told me that he was over with this fishing boat. And they do a crew change every 20 days, and there's 35 or 40 of them. And there are a number of boats, he told me, and a number of different companies. So when I came back to Newfoundland and Labrador, I approached his company, and he gave me some information that was beneficial to Air Greenland, and he also put me in touch with other companies that would use an air link if it was available. Right now, they have to make other flight accommodations, and there's 2 or 3 sort of ups and downs before they get to where they need to go to, and having it directly from St. John's or from somewhere in Newfoundland and Labrador would be a big advantage for them.
From Goose Bay?
From Goose Bay, for instance.
Yeah.
And Labrador would be a perfect opportunity. We actually flew out of Goose Bay over to Nuuk, and it's a very short flight. A beautiful flight going in there, and a lot closer than I realized it was. And so I think there's all kinds of reasons why we can be doing business with Greenland. And I think the important thing about our mission was, because it was a government and a business mission, they got to talk to business people about how we do business here. They also got to talk to government about our regulatory regime with our offshore oil industry, and they were very interested in that. Interested enough, as I said, that they're going to come back and we're going to have more meetings with them.
Since we want their business, why not have one of our airlines, Provincial Airlines or Air Labrador, or somebody look at doing those flights? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, it certainly is a possibility. We think that it's got to be reciprocal in terms of both have to benefit. And one of the things that we were hoping to do was have Air Greenland come here to give us more access to the European market as well, because they do fly into the European market, and we felt that that would be a good link for us. So it opened up more opportunities for us. It wasn't just getting to Greenland. We wanted to get to Greenland, yes, but we also wanted to open up other markets in England and Ireland and other Scandinavian countries for other export opportunities for some of our other businesses.
What else has to be done to ensure that Newfoundland companies and Labrador companies benefit from what is surely going to be a natural resources boom in Greenland in the coming years?
Yeah. Well, you're quite correct. There is going to be a boom there, and it is going to be related to natural resources. And I think the immediate potential beneficiaries can be our service and supply companies in the offshore oil and gas industry. And they're aware of each other. I mean, the Nuna Oil in Greenland, which is their sort of national oil company, we're quite familiar with some of our players and quite familiar with their capabilities. They're currently being serviced from Aberdeen, and it's longer distance, it's more expensive, and they're looking at other alternatives, and they see Newfoundland and Labrador as a service base as being much more practical for them and much less expensive. But I also think there's a lot of companies that can feed into that supply chain from a service basis and from just building of infrastructure. One of the things that Greenland is going to have to grapple with when this boom occurs is there isn't infrastructure available. There aren't roads.
Examples?
Well, there aren't roads, there aren't houses, they don't have the adequate medical facilities, schools and all those kinds of things. So they have schools and hospitals. I'm not saying they don't have them, but they don't have them to the capacity that they would need with an influx of people, with an influx of people coming to work and live there. So they're going to need people on the ground. They're going to need to build infrastructure for that. While we were there, we saw apartment buildings going up, 4, 5, 6-story apartment buildings. They're getting ready for it. And so some of it will happen on the ground in Greenland, but some of it, I think, can also happen in Labrador and could, for instance, happen in Happy Valley Goose Bay. Because of the short ride that you'd have to take on a plane, you could house or stage what you need to stage in Happy Valley Goose Bay and then just pop the people across a short flight, an hour and a half or so, and they're in Greenland, they could be working.
So who initiates that? Is that your government that's going to build the infrastructure to make Happy Valley Goose Bay an attractive option for Greenland?
Well, it's going to be, right now it's being initiated by us as a provincial government, and when I was Minister of Innovation, Trade and Rural Development, I travelled with the Minister of Natural Resources, who's now Premier Dunderdale, so I happen to follow in her footsteps here, so that's a nice linkage for me. I'll work with the current Minister of Innovation, Trade and Rural Development, and I'm also currently working with the Minister of Business, because he's responsible for outside investment and attraction. And we collectively will work with the people in Greenland, make sure that we understand that we both share a similar vision of how we want to do things. And it's very early stages, in fairness. Right now, we're just trying to get them to come back, meet with us, talk to them about the plans that we think we can put together. Some of it business will do on their own. They don't need government. Some of this is going to be driven by a business necessity. But there are going to have to be infrastructure and social plans put in place by the government of Greenland and the government of Newfoundland and Labrador, I believe, to be able to service what's going to happen in Greenland. So there's a whole bunch of things happening at once. It's not sort of linear. It's a whole bunch of things happening at once in parallel, and some of them will move faster than others simply because of the demands of the business. But we feel we've opened up a good dialogue. I met with a number of ministers while I was there. Myself and Premier Dunderdale met with Premier Kleist over there, and we believe that they're very interested and very aware of the capabilities of Newfoundland and Labrador, and that's why they're going to come back and have further chats here and see what we have to offer. We invited them back not so much to talk to them, but to show them what we have. We felt it was important that they see our university, they see our Marine Institute, see our offshore supply service areas, see the infrastructure we have. They need to know the capabilities we have. See the runways in Happy Valley Goose Bay and so on, how short a distance it is. They need to be made aware of that. And they weren't aware of that when we went over.
Also, I mean, so many of the oil companies that operate here are starting to explore in the Baffin Bay area. And it seems to me that if we want to supply them by ship, we're going to need another harbor or another port. Is this something that you've thought about?
Well, there's been lots of discussions about other ports. The Port of St. John's has been looking at some expansion and some reconfiguration
Freshwater Bay.
To what it's doing. Some of it is happening in Argentia. There are people in Argentia. Argentia is a huge, deep ice-free port, deep water port. The port of Corner Brook, even though that's on the other side of the island, it's a very good port for transshipment of a lot of materials. So we've got options, and also the port of Happy Valley Goose Bay. There's opportunities there. So the question now becomes one of, as we engage with the people from Greenland to find out what their needs are, and what we believe our needs are in terms of servicing them, where is it best to do it from? And that will be driven by governments in both jurisdictions. It'll be driven by businesses, and it'll be driven in a lot of cases by who's able to ramp up quickly enough to be able to do it. Which port, for instance, is able to get off the ground earlier? And that'll be a competitive process.
Because I mean, someone like me, the potential is so huge over there. But I wonder, so who starts tapping into it? How do you ensure that we get that piece of action?
Well, I guess there's no certainties with that. I mean, as I indicated earlier, they are being serviced by other jurisdictions right now. They are looking, though. They understand that there are other options out there.
Cairn Energy says it's the competitive, it's having that competitive edge. So how do we ensure that we have that competitive edge? What do we have to do?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing we needed to do was make them aware of our capabilities. They did not have an understanding of how much we had to offer. They knew, generally speaking, where we were. They knew, generally speaking, we were involved in the offshore oil industry. They knew we had some regulatory regimes. But until we got over there and talked to them in detail, there were many times when they went, this is very informative. We didn't understand you were so far advanced. Because they're just starting. They literally just discovered. They are where we were in 1980, for argument's sake. That's where they're to. And so there's a lot for them to learn. But we've got a lot of stuff already in place that we can help them with. So having them come here and having them see what we've got, we believe will be sort of the stamp that will make all of this happen. They'll understand then what we can do for them.
When is it you're expecting them here?
I expect in February, March.
Okay, good.
Yeah, they should be here.
Now we have the fiber optic cable. So how do we build on that? And how did that come to be anyway?
Well, the fiber optic cable is out in Milton, out in the Clarenville area, goes back undersea through to Greenland. I haven't seen the station here in Milton yet, but I did see the station in Greenland, and I did get him to open up the big box when we walked into the room. It's just a room with a bunch of wires, but the main cable that came in from the ocean, I did manage to put my hand on it, and I said that someday I'll get back to Milton and be able to put my hand on the other end of it. But that came about, a lot of that was driven by Greenland and academic institutions, Memorial University, who were linking together, researchers who were linking together, and they wanted to have a link to North America. They already had a link to Europe, but they wanted to be able to have that redundancy, to be able to, if something happened to the European link, to be able to go a different way, to be able to get back into North America and back through to Europe. And so they decided that they'd come into Newfoundland, Labrador to do that because we were the closest place. And so they spent, I believe it was around $3-4 million to bring that line over, that fiber optic line underwater, and build a station in Milton that houses it. And they have a person out there that maintains it and looks after it and all that kind of thing. And so, that's now done wonders for the university community in terms of the capability and the amount of data and the amount of information that can be put through that line has increased, 10 or 100-fold. So it's done a lot that way in terms of speeding up how the researchers are using the information. But what it also does is there are private companies now that are looking at that to see are there ways they can tap into Greenland in terms of opportunities for them with data services, with redundancy, companies that need to have backup plans should something go wrong, if the power is lost or if there's an emergency. Where would they store their data? How would that data be able to be utilized if an emergency occurred? And we potentially could be a site for that.
And that was an important, opening for a relationship with Greenland. Is it? How would you, characterize that in terms of the importance of building a closer relationship?
Well, I think what it did was it built some trust. The sense I got when I went there, and I was very curious when I went as minister to find out how we would be perceived. I didn't want to be perceived as coming in and trying to take something from them, and we talked about that as a mission before we left. I talked about that with the companies. I asked them to come into my office and we had a chat. I said, we're not going over there to take anything. We're going over there to let them know what our capabilities are, and if they feel there's something we can do for them, we'll ask them about that. And if we feel there's something we might be able to do, we'll offer it up to them. But I don't want us going in there feeling like we're going to go in and take something from them. So we went there with the approach of, we've done a lot of what you people now are going to have to go through, and we think we can offer you something, and we'd like you to come and see what it is we could offer. And so the Greenland piece, because we did discuss and had discussed some of that telecommunications line, that particular piece of business that we had done had given us some trust with them, for lack of a better word. They had confidence that we were willing to work with them to their benefit as much as to our benefit. And I think that sort of, that helped soften some things for us. So when we went into government offices, when we went into the Premier's office, when we went into boardrooms of some of their major companies, Potential of Greenland, their shipping lines, their oil companies, their mining companies, there was an understanding that these were friends coming. That's how I felt. I felt like they were welcoming a friend. And it wasn't just purely business. It was a little bit softer than that. And I felt it was very good to have an exchange of information. I felt very comfortable in all the meetings I was in. I felt very comfortable with our presentations. And it was a dialogue like you and I are having now. It wasn't just a presentation. It really was a conversation.
How would you compare the potential for jobs that Greenland has for Newfoundlanders with Fort McMurray?
Well, at this stage, I certainly think that Greenland is in very early stages, and Greenland wants to see Greenlandic people benefit. They have, not a large population, as I said, 56,000 people, but they have a population, and a lot of their population is not working. They used to be a fisher people for the most part. That was their main economy. We know what's happened with the fisheries. It's affected them over there. So they'd like to transition some of their people from fishing into the oil and gas and offshore oil and gas supply service industry. So I think their first priority is let's see what we can do to skill up and to make our own people available to work in this industry, and how we as people who may be going in there to offer services can help them with that. Then secondary to that will be other people going into work. There will be opportunities. The quantity, I'm not prepared at this point, nor would I have any particular information to be able to put on it, but the opportunity is certainly there, and I think it's a large opportunity.
As big as Fort McMurray?
I'm not sure if it would be that big. That's, it's hard for me to say at this point because they don't have, as I indicated, there are infrastructure issues. I don't know how fast they're going to want to move this development forward. I don't know how fast they're going to be in terms of creating the infrastructure that they're going to need. They may not develop it as fast as we did or as other jurisdictions have done. They're taking their time, to their credit. They're taking their time, and they're doing it slowly, and they're making sure that they lay a good, firm foundation before they get too far along. And I commend them for that. I think that's what they should be doing.
In terms of educational opportunities, it was very clear that they want training. What steps have you taken since you got back, or has the government taken since it got back, to see if our educational institutions here could offer that training?
There's no doubt that there's great interest in educational opportunities. They were very, very interested in the fact that we had the Marine Institute along. The representative from the Marine Institute had some great conversations and did some good presentations with people. They still do a fair bit of work on the water. They're interested in training for people on the water, whether it be fishing or offshore oil and gas, whatever it may be. They're very interested in safety. They're very interested in making sure that their workers are safe, and the Marine Institute can do a lot of that. So one of the ministers that we actually met with, her husband was a captain on a fishing vessel, and she brought him to a supper meeting to talk with the representative from the Marine Institute so they could share some information. And they will be coming over to follow up with the Marine Institute on what they might be able to do for them. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
And expansion, would we have to expand to accommodate the new students, et cetera?
No, what we discussed with them initially is that the Marine Institute is able to go to them, and currently does, I'll call it outreach training, and is set up to be able to do that. So the Marine Institute is currently doing that in a lot of places, not only in Canada but around the world. And the initial conversations were that we would go there and do the training on their sites. They'd have to provide the sites and some of the infrastructure, but we would provide the expertise and the curriculum and those kinds of things.
Right now there's a moratorium on Arctic drilling in Canada, deep water drilling. We're close to Baffin Bay, that whole region where they are exploring for oil. Is that do you see Canada, Newfoundland, that Labrador's industry moving there? Does that have potential for this province?
In terms of where the industry, will move or may want to move, I think there are a lot of options that are available to them. My sense, and I've been here in this portfolio for a week now, but my sense, based upon my trip with the representatives of NOIA, is that they see Greenland as being somewhere that's the next Hibernia for them, for lack of a better word. And I think there's a great interest, and I think they'll be going there, and I think they'll be going there strong. Where to after that? Who knows? I think that'll be driven by the companies more so than by governments. The companies will determine where they feel the best bang for their buck will be, and they'll move to that, migrate towards that. And right now, I think Greenland is certainly something that they see as a prime opportunity.
Is there anything that you need the federal government's cooperation with in order to continue to build on this relationship with Greenland?
No, we haven't had any incidents yet, or incidences of where we would need to engage with the federal government. I mean, it's certainly something that, as I, in my role now as Minister of Natural Resources, engage with my federal and provincial counterparts, I'll talk more about it, because I think there's opportunities there for other, people, other parts of Canada to be able to engage in. And if there's ways that we might be able to partner with the federal government or other Atlantic provinces in particular, I'd be more than open to try to do that. I think we need to do more of that sort of regional cooperation, because when you get outside of your own jurisdiction and you're competing in the world, we're competing against some fairly large entities, and be they companies or be they countries. And sometimes Newfoundland and Labrador would be well served to be joined with some of the other Atlantic provinces or with the Government of Canada. And we do that in other places. We've joined together when we've gone on trade missions to present ourselves as a region as opposed to a province. So if there are opportunities for that, we'd explore those. But right now, I don't see that as being something that's on the immediate need.
To conclude, what is the potential of Greenland?
I think the biggest potential in Greenland right now is in the offshore oil and gas, and the opportunity to help them develop infrastructure to be able to supply and service that. And by infrastructure, I don't just mean the rigs and the chemicals and stuff that they would need. I'm talking housing, I'm talking roads, I'm talking education, training. All of those things are going to be needed. And our wood, one of the good things, I should mention this, one of the good things that I saw is that Greenland has no wood. Everything that they have in Greenland is imported. We've had some, closures here with our mills. We've lost Stephenville, we've lost Grand Falls, Windsor, in terms of our mills. We have an opportunity for export of not just raw product, but I'm talking finished product. Things like furniture. All the furniture that they have over there, it's all imported. Houses, everything over there has to be brought in. So there's a tremendous opportunity for that kind of thing. And we've engaged back here to try and prepare when they come to show them the capabilities and the capacity we have here, and how we may be able to get our product over to them. And I think they're going to be very interested when they get here in seeing why they should engage with us as much as we're trying to engage with them.
The Greenland Norse apparently used to cut wood in Labrador and brought it back.
Okay.
There's that historical connection.
Well, we're going to continue that connection, hopefully.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.